Welcome to Spotlight on America, the show that is about ordinary people living in America, people like you and me who have a story to tell, to share, to inspire. I'm Arif Mansuri, your host, and this show is presented by Pakistan Link, Urdu Link, and the Mansuri Show. Now, as of the recording of this show in late April, coronavirus is continuing its spread across the world with around 3 million confirmed cases in 185 countries. In this crisis, we must listen to the doctors, the experts who are watching this outbreak unfold up close and in real time. For a straight talk about coronavirus and to learn how to protect ourselves, we have invited 4 doctors who are on the front line of the coronavirus pandemic. They live and work right here in Southern California. Now, each of these doctors have been treating coronavirus patients on a daily basis. They have been watching patients recover and also, unfortunately, die from coronavirus. Now, they will share their first-hand experience with this disease and give current and valuable advice on how we can protect ourselves, our family, and our community. Please stay with me as we go on this journey. Now, before we begin our discussion, I'd like to request the readers of our USA-based weekly newspapers, Pakistan Link and Urdu Link, to please visit our website, www.pakistanlink.com, to read the digital copy of our newspapers. We hope to have the delivery of the printed copies of our newspapers available as soon as the coronavirus lockdown orders are lifted around the nation. We will now begin our discussion on coronavirus with the panel of doctors who are on the front line of this pandemic and are currently dealing with this virus every day. I would like to now welcome the panelists and introduce the panel. First up, I have Dr. Atiya Shah. Dr. Atiya Shah is a specialist in infection disease. She is an assistant professor, Department of Medicine at the University of California, Riverside. She is also the vice chair of the Department of Medicine at the Arcadia Methodist Hospital, California. Dr. Azhar Majid, he is an MD, MBA, FACP, FHM. His specialty is internal medicine and he is a hospitalist. He's on the COVID-19 task force, MEC at San Antonio Regional Hospital. He is the president of the Southern California chapter of APNA. Dr. Samia Faz, her specialty is internal medicine and she is also a hospitalist. She is the assistant professor at the Department of Medicine in University of California, Riverside. And she's a counselor for Dogana, the Association of Tau Graduates. Dr. Awais Zaidi, he is his specialty is pulmonary and critical care. He works at the San Antonio Regional Hospital in Upland, California. Dr. Atiya Shah, I would start by asking you this question, that currently in the whole world, about 200,000 people have died from coronavirus, and there have been roughly 3 million infections worldwide as of now in late April 2020. Now, out of this, 50,000 people have died in the United States. And out of the 3 million, 1 million infections are in the United States. I understand that the influenza virus, which is commonly known as flu, it is also very deadly. In the United States, we have the flu season from October through May. And according to CDC, this season, this year, we have had 30,000 to 60,000 deaths till the middle of March of this year. So now the flu virus is also very deadly. And I would like to ask you, what is the difference between the flu virus or the influenza virus and the COVID-19? And what are the differences in symptoms? And why is COVID-19 so much more dangerous?
Thank you for this opportunity to share with you our experiences. So as we know, both are respiratory viral illnesses. but what we are calling now COVID-19 or coronavirus disease is caused by a virus called SARS-CoV-2. And this is a novel coronavirus. So we are familiar with coronaviruses, which have, from what we have seen, called mild cold-like symptoms. But this is a novel virus. That means we have not seen this before. We are not familiar with it. We have seen similar things in the past, like MERS, which is Middle Eastern Respiratory Syndrome, or SARS in 2000. But this subtype, the SARS-CoV-2, is completely new to us. Since it is so new, we don't have any experience how to treat it. We don't have a vaccine for it, and we don't know how it's going to behave. As far as influenza, it's somewhat predictable to us. We know that the viruses that cause it, A, B, yeah, we know that it comes in the winter season and by springtime it dies out. And we have a vaccine for it. And we also have medications to treat it. And we can tweak those medications as the virus and as if it mutates. But as far as we have the COVID-19, it has completely taken us by surprise, and we have no experience of how it's going to behave, nor any experience treating it or any protection from vaccination, which is why I feel that it has been much more deadlier as an unknown enemy to us. I would like to share with you some differences that it has from influenza and coronavirus. It is definitely has much higher mortality than influenza and also infectivity. We assess infectivity by an R0 number. It basically tells us how many people will be infected if one person becomes infected. So for that flu, that number is 1.3, which means one person who's infected infects another 1.3 person. However, for COVID-19, that number is at least 2.5 to 3. That means any one person who's infected goes and infects 3 more people. As far as the incubation period for flu was only 1 to 4. So we know as soon as somebody gets an infection, within 4 days they have symptoms. However, with COVID-19, the incubation period can range from 1 to 14 days. And the incubation period mainly means the time from exposure to first symptoms. But the problem here is, a lot of times during this 14-day period, people are transferring the virus without even knowing that they have illness. So essentially, for the 5 days or 6 days before they're even aware that they are infected with a virus, they are spreading it to others. And this is a very dangerous aspect of this virus, which is not really so much so with the flu. In addition, the hospitalization rate for COVID-19 is much higher, about 20% compared to 2% for influenza. I mean, both go and cause pneumonias, but COVID-19 has definitely proven to be a more serious infection, which is why its case fatality, which means percentage of reported deaths among total cases, is much higher than flu. If for flu, it's about 0.1, but for COVID-19, it's about 3.5%. So these are the reasons why COVID-19 has been much more deadly than the flu that we are familiar with.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tirsha. Dr. Azhar Majid, your specialty is internal medicine and you are a hospitalist, and you see patients inpatient and outpatient. So you see the patients of COVID-19 at your office, outside the hospital, and also at the hospital. So I'd like to ask you, what is your experience managing this virus in the office and in the hospital? And how can one prevent getting to that stage to have to be admitted to a hospital?
Thank you, Mr. Mansuri, for having me on this panel of frontline physicians, and it's my honor to be here with all of you. First of all, just wanted to say, for our general discussion here tonight, and probably for all the physicians, this is really an informational, and it really doesn't constitute providing medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. I really want to remind everyone, please contact your primary doctor, get the specifics for your health conditions, But again, Mr. Mansuri, 2 very important things. Number 1, how are we treating these patients in the office? Well, as you know, the governor's stay-at-home order and the LA County Safer at Home program has been instituted now for several weeks. In fact, most offices are closed nowadays because they can't prevent the strict social distancing and the criteria that a large hospital could, for example. So to that tune, we've actually instituted telehealth throughout our practices in outpatient. The patients are having video visits. We can see them in real time. We can get to them quicker, and they can be safe at home. They don't have to travel. They're not exposed to anybody in the office or in their journey. And that's one of the ways that we've been kind of working on it with the telehealth video visits. To really get to your point of the issue of how to prevent hospitalization. Well, first off, obviously, if anybody has a serious medical condition, shortness of breath, chest pain, so forth, you need to call 911. You need to make sure that you get medical care. I don't want you to delay your medical care. The issue of getting to the point of when the patient needs to be hospitalized. Obviously, we have CDC's high-risk criteria, including, age, including multiple medical histories and comorbidities, as we call it. And obviously, these patients need to be pre-screened and need to be directed to the appropriate facility. How can you prevent it really at home? Is really to follow the rules, the practice the social distancing, stay at home. Really, I'm encourage all my patients, especially those over age 65, you really don't need to leave your house unless it's absolutely necessary. If you're an essential worker, I understand you got to go, but now most counties, including here in Los Angeles, have allowed our essential workers to glove up, mask up. And what you can do normally is what all the officials and all the advice you've been hearing: wash your hands for soap for at least 30 seconds, avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth when on washed hands, clean and disinfect frequently touched objects and surfaces, cover your sneeze into your elbow, not into your hands, wear a face mask. And, we're a little bit late now, but for those of you that got the flu shot to prevent influenza, there's still time, and CDC still recommends getting that if you haven't done so this season.
Thank you so much, Dr. Majid. My next question is for you, Dr. Samia Faiz. You are an educator, and you are also, your specialty is also internal medicine, and you are a hospitalist. So you see the patients, inpatient and outpatient, but you are also an educator. You are an assistant professor, and you're teaching medicine. So I would like to ask you, from your perspective, how are you teaching, or what are you teaching your patients? And also, what advice, what can you educate us? What should we do regarding this situation with the coronavirus?
Assalamualaikum. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I really am happy to be here. And as this pandemic has affected everybody, it's really better to educate our community and our patients. So our patients, I see mostly patients in inpatient setting and not outpatient at all. Mostly educating my residents. I round with my residents. So I see really, really sick patients in the hospital, the patients who are dying, and the patients who are COVID positive, and patients who are non-COVID positive who are at risk while they are in the hospital. So it's a really challenging situation in the hospitals, and then we have to educate our patients when they are discharged from the hospital to be safe. There are patients in the hospital who are COVID positive, and when they recover and when we discharge them, we have to be very specific with them, just to not to share bathroom in their bedroom with other family members. Their things should be separate. Their things should be separate. Their food should be separate, and their trash can should be separate. And then we dispose everything. And we ask the caretakers to really have strict precautions, hand washing, spraying the disinfectant on all the surfaces, and then, hand washing before and after touching the patient's stuff. So that is for the COVID positive patients that we see. And then when they're discharged, we have to quarantine them. We have to isolate them from, at least as a CDC council recommendations about 14 days from the onset of their symptoms, and when they're discharged, they should really space out and distance themselves. Once the quarantine is over, they should still practice social distancing. Regarding non-COVID patients that we see in the hospital, when they're discharged, it will be same as the regular community members, as Dr. Azim Majid said, and as Dr. Atiya Shah said. It's the same thing. The community is really challenged right now. Is this practicing social distancing? And it should be 6 feet and over. People should stay over, and it is really, really important, because when patients or normal population in the community, when they are in the close proximity, it's really they are putting themselves at risk. So regular community members, we ask them to wear a mask. A cloth mask is fine. The healthcare professionals in the hospital, they should wear an N95 mask. We should always protect ourselves with, I always wear a gown in the hospital. I just want to protect myself. I usually wear gloves, gown, and a face cap and a head cap, so that nobody comes near me, and we are just like talking in a safe distance way. Most of the patients in the hospital, they if they are COVID positive, they are in one area of the hospital, and but still patients, we are seeing new and new patients right now. So we want to educate the community to practice social distancing as much as possible still. The CDC, some areas did say that end of April would be the peak of coronavirus, but I'm seeing new patients now, and then I feel that our numbers are increasing, so we need to be very careful, and we need to tell our community to practice social distancing, wear a mask, wash our hands, take care of our mail, take care of everything, take care of cardboard boxes, everything, and continue our precautions until this pandemic is really over, and then we lift our restrictions in a better way.
Thank you very much, Dr. Samia. My next question is for Dr. Wes Zaidi. You are a lung specialist, and you are seeing many complications. And I'd like to ask you, what is the acute respiratory distress syndrome, ARDS? And also, I'd like to ask you, why are these viruses find their way into the lung, and what are some of the complications?
Thank you for the invitation. So, as pulmonologists, we have been at the forefront of taking care of patients with COVID-19. And one of the main reasons the lung physicians have seen the severity of this disease is because the COVID-19 virus targets the respiratory system. That's how it gains entry into the human body. These receptors, which let this virus in, are found all throughout the body, but the virus, the way it gets in, is binds to these receptors to get inside our lungs. ARDS is a syndrome where it causes severe inflammation inside the lungs, and this syndrome has been seen for a long time, and it's been associated with other diseases. However, COVID-19 has really brought this syndrome into spotlight. ARDS, what it is, it causes leaking of the vessels because of inflammation inside the lungs, which makes it difficult for the patients to breathe, and their lungs filled with inflammation and water. And to overcome this, patients breathe fast, they require oxygen, and a small minority of these patients end up going on the ventilators. I would say about 5 to 15% of patients who have been diagnosed with coronavirus do develop this complication of respiratory failure, ARDS, and they require the support of the ventilator. once patients go on the ventilator, it comes with its own baggage of problems, such as more bacterial infections on top of the viral infections. They can go into kidney failure. And we have also seen blood clots that are forming in patients who have been diagnosed with coronavirus, and they end up progressing to respiratory failure, especially the ones who get on the ventilator. Now, I have to say that even though there has been studies, or it has been noted that patients who end up going on the ventilator, they have a very high mortality. Almost, it's been written as almost 80 to 90% patients who go on the ventilator end up not surviving. Fortunately, we have seen, patients, about 50% of patients who go on the ventilator end up not doing well, but a lot of them actually do survive. A lot of them do get extubated. However, they're taking very long time to recover from this.
Thank you very much. And that's good news that you're seeing that the patients that are going on the ventilators are faring okay. So that is definitely a good news.
Yeah, I do want to point out that at the beginning of this pandemic, we were actually, blindsided, because we didn't know how this disease act, what do patients present with, and what are the complications we need to be watching out for. As we get to know our patients more, as we get to know how this disease works, we're able to take care of these patients better, and the complications that are associated with this disease better, and hence we have better outcomes.
Dr. Lewis, do you have enough ventilators?
Fortunately, our hospital, we didn't have any issues with ventilator shortages. There are some of my colleagues at other hospitals that did notice some shortages, but a lot of them were short-lived. That means that the shortages were short-lived.
Thank you for very valuable information, everyone. I'd like to ask you, Dr. Atiya Shah, I understand that there is no vaccine as of now, but are there any treatments that seem to be working? And also, are there any medicine or food supplements, vitamins, or something that one can take to prevent getting the coronavirus? So is there any latest medicine that seems to be working?
As I had mentioned, this is a completely new virus to us that we were not really prepared to address. That being said, as of right now, there are no FDA-approved treatments for COVID-19. Right now, the treatment is mainly supportive care, which means supplemental oxygen, fluids if needed, managing the vent if they get onto that. However, there have been certain drugs and that have been tried in other places, and we are going by that data, which although is very small powered, which means we have very small samples for these patients, but there have been certain drugs which, although not FDA approved, are being considered, and more information is coming out about them as we learn them. This has been the frustrating part of this pandemic, is that we don't have clear-cut guidelines, and we are kind of making the guidelines with our experience and with what we are seeing. And also changing guidelines as we see side effects to drugs. So several drugs are under investigation for COVID-19. So one of the drugs that is being considered and being used is chloroquine and hydroxychloroquine. Now, this is not a drug that is new to us, especially people from India, Pakistan. It's an old anti-malarial medication that has shown some in vitro activity against the SARS-CoV-2 virus, and early data has shown some promise with decreasing the viral replication and shortening the disease course. Then there is remdesivir, which is another antiviral medication that was developed to actually treat Ebola virus. It also has in vitro activity against SARS-CoV-2, but is currently only being used on trial access basis. Then there are other drugs that came and were swiftly not thought to work. And these are some of our antiretrovirals like lopinavir, ritonavir. But they were trialed in some of the patients, but not really found to be very beneficial. Other things that we are trying are convalescent serum plasma, which basically means that any patient who has recovered from this disease and has antibodies to this, basically they are trying to take out those antibodies and give it to the patient that is struggling with the disease in an effort to help that patient fight this virus. The other things that are being considered and used are immunomodulatory agents. So the way this disease works is a two-pronged approach. One is the activity of the virus, which causes the damage to the lung. And in reverse, it's also the body's ability to fight the virus, which is causing a lot of the damage as well. So basically, these drugs affect the immune response of the body to try to prevent further damage. Unfortunately, none of these therapies are completely proven to be efficacious. And there are still trials and new information coming out about managing this every day. As far as coming to nutrients, so I think the biggest thing at this point right now is trying to prevent the illness, keeping healthy, exercising. But some things that have people are considering are, as far as supplements, are zinc. Zinc has been associated with a body's ability to mount an immune response. So some people feel that taking some zinc supplementation, and I've also heard this from physicians who are using this, especially if they're on service, they would take some zinc tablets to try to have an adequate immune response. Other things, vitamin C, which has been associated with a lot of other things, including fighting sepsis, that has some antioxidant properties, which limit inflammation. However, I can tell you that oral vitamin C is not enough. And what has shown some benefit is IV vitamin C. The other things are vitamin D. It has shown that good levels of or adequate levels of vitamin D help with inflammation and prevent tissue damage in the body. So these three supplements have shown some benefit. But other than that, I think right now we are still in the trial and error phase of trying to deal with this virus, which is somewhat unfortunate.
How much of each of these vitamins do you recommend, like the vitamin C, zinc, and D3? And what about the agnesia? And what is the dosage that you recommend of each of these?
So the vitamin D, I would suggest that before taking supplementation for vitamin D, it's best to get your vitamin D levels checked. Most of us in California are lucky that we have average sun exposure, but nevertheless, so the dosing would be based on your deficiency and how deficient you are. So I wouldn't say that it's a fixed dose. For zinc, it's about 50 milligrams per day. We do not want to take overdosage of this because it can have effects on the kidney. And for vitamin C, most people usually take about 2 tablets a day. But the efficacy of all these supplements is not proven.
Thank you so much. Dr. Azhar Majid, I would like to ask you, what happens if I feel that I have coronavirus? Who do I call? And if I feel that I may be infected with coronavirus, can I get tested? Do you have any resources for us for that?
Sure. So that's a very common question among the patients. They'll call, say, hey, I think I've been exposed. So I always ask them, how? If you haven't been out of your house, what have you been doing? Number one, you got to stay at home. The message has not been exhaustive enough. And I think most people are doing that, but we really need to follow that. But if you think you've been exposed, number one, the CDC guidelines currently still are, you need to quarantine yourself for 14 days. Remember, the vast majority of us are going to have minimal to none symptoms. So there's only going to be those that have symptoms are in the more serious aspect of it later. But most of us will have minimal or flu-like symptoms. Now, once you quarantine yourself, what you need to look out for, the big ones: cough and shortness of breath, any difficulty breathing. You need to call your doctor. You need to find out. And at least two of the other symptoms as recommended by CDC, including fever, chills, repeated shaking with chills, headache, sore throat, and new loss or taste of smell. You know, this is one that they're also adding up that of recent. Now, if you had any of these emergency warning signs, you need to seek medical attention immediately. You need to get to the nearest hospital and so forth, especially with trouble breathing, persistent pain or pressure in the chest, new confusion or inability to arouse, bluish lips or face. Of course, the list isn't exhaustive. If you're not feeling right, if you think something's wrong, get yourself some attention. Your other question about testing, and I'm glad you brought that up, Mr. Mansuri, especially here in LA County. Now, nationally on the state level, we've been a little bit behind on testing. We can't get everyone that wants a test currently, but for the vast majority of us now, especially here in LA County, testing has been ramped up significantly. I would recommend that you call your local hospital and ask them. Geographically, LA County is a really large area. We have over 15 drive-through sites currently. Before you had to go online, get an appointment and so forth. You still do. We're still prioritizing, obviously, for those patients who are hospitalized, healthcare workers, workers living in congregate living settings, first responders with symptoms, residents in long-term care facilities and the nursing homes, including prisons, shelters. These are obviously a higher priority. Also, people who have had over age 65 with multiple comorbidities, multiple medical conditions, you know, and anyone with symptoms, including the fever, cough, shortness of breath, the ones I'd mentioned before, you know, they should be able to get tested. If you can't reach your doctor, go to the local, one of your best resources, and I'd really like to get this out to the community, is your local county health department. LA County, Orange County, San Bernardino, Riverside, wherever you live here in Southern California. I'm very familiar with LA counties. Great information for patients, great information where the drive-through testing centers are. And I really encourage everybody to look that up, please.
The temperature you mentioned, how much the temperature should be before one should start getting worried?
Many of these COVID patients, and I'm sure Dr. Shah and Dr. Fez and Zaidi can corroborate, you know, have multiple fevers over several nights. And yes, one of the key hallmarks is high degree of fever. But if they're not having the secondary symptoms, shortness of breath, confusion, chest pain, you know, they can take, you know, the fever reducing medication, check in with their doctor early and quite frequently check in again. Again, I won't stress this enough. Most physicians, large practices, you have your video visits, you have your tele visits. Please get in touch with medical personnel.
Thank you so much, Dr. Majid. Dr. Sana, I would like to ask you, how much socializing can we do? Is there any socializing that's permissible? And how long should we stay, you know, at home? And also, I'd like to talk to you about what preventions we should take when we are staying home, like how to clean the boxes, packages of food, and other things that we are handling while staying at home.
We have to inform the community to stay home as much as possible. I know everybody's tired. It's really, really difficult right now. I see more and more people going out of home, both in Riverside County and Orange County. One, I practice in Riverside County, and where I live in Orange County. And many more people, they're really tired right now. They want to go out. They want to have fun. So I see more and more people, and it's kind of dangerous this time because there's a chance of resurgence in the community. There are new people who are just getting infected. The more socializing we do, it's really harmful at this time. And we would really require everybody to stay home as much as possible. The family should really go out. They're allowed to walk in their own neighborhood. They should really go out, but not with other families. Like I heard some of my friends tell me that they are hanging out outside in the park. People have been, going with other families too. They say that they are doing, for social distancing and they're staying 6 feet away. But I really don't think that it is possible with large group gatherings. And then we have seen there are so many outbreaks with the different large gatherings, wherever it is in our community. If there's large gatherings, there's a chance of people getting infected, and then we are putting everyone else at risk. Our people around us, people in our families, people who are outside in the community where we work. If we are healthcare workers, we are exposing people in our health communities. If we are working somewhere else as an essential worker, even people who are working like truck drivers, people working in the supermarkets, if they start going out and hanging out in the park with other people, they are infecting tons of people. These people are asymptomatic. People are maybe really asymptomatic. They may not show all these signs of shortness of breath, fever, or cough. They may not have all these symptoms. They may have really subtle symptoms. They may be asymptomatic carriers, and it is very dangerous at this time. So social distancing, 6 feet away, staying home as much as possible is the basic key. Now, right now, people are using masks. Cloth mask is really good for all the communities. In the community, people should do that. And like I said before as well, the healthcare workers should wear N95 mask, and as well as gloves and other stuff that is available to us in our respective facilities. So that is important. Even in the hospital, even outside the hospital, we should really practice social distancing. um, One word of advice: we have to clean our surfaces. Whichever things are touched more, like our kitchen utensils, the bathrooms, the doorknobs, everything should be cleaned at least 3 times a day. That's what I think. Especially as a healthcare worker, I am exposed to people who are sick, and then I want to make sure that everything is cleaned multiple times, so that once everything is cleaned and dry, I think it's really good. Then you can use it. But otherwise, you don't know. You are enabling infected surfaces to spread the disease. Also, what we are doing is that we are touching our mouth, our nose, and our eyes frequently. We do that as a general public. So I just would like to tell the communities not to do that as much as they can avoid. I know it's impossible to think about it. Involuntarily, people do it, but as much as conscious, this is a serious disease. This is a serious pandemic. We have to be careful for everybody's sake, for our loved ones' sake, for everybody else, so that we can prevent the spread of this disease. We can prevent a resurge. So the surfaces should be clean. When we go out, social distancing is good. The mask is good. As much as possible, we can do it. It's better to prevent the spread of this disease.
Thank you so much, Dr. Samo. Now, next, I will ask Dr. Vezadi, are there any, medicine that I can take, or is there anything I can do to prevent my lungs from getting damaged? Any supplements, medicine, exercise to ensure that my lungs don't get, in a shape where a ventilator is needed?
Well, I think I'd just like to say or echo what Dr. Shahid said earlier. Anecdotally, we know a few things that might help avoid getting infected with coronavirus. However, none of these medicines have been proven. Vitamin C, vitamin D, and zinc. These are possible preventive measures one can take. I myself take vitamin C daily, and I don't think we're at that stage in our knowledge to suggest anything that would prevent that. that would prevent us from getting any of these viral illnesses, especially coronavirus.
I'd like to ask a question of all the panelists. I'd like to know, what prevention are you doing personally? I know at the hospitals and at your place of work, you take precaution to not get infected. But what do you do at home? How do you prevent yourself and your family from getting infected?
I can share what I do, since I have kids, I have parents who live with me, and that is, for any healthcare provider, the biggest worry at this point, I think, is carrying the virus to our loved ones, which is, I think, the thing that we would want to avoid the most. I can tell you that we are hyper vigilant at this point, in the sense that we are very, when I go to work in the morning, I leave from a separate entrance to the garage. I make sure I take all my things. I make sure when we're in the hospital, we are following all the procedures. I mean, the day has added extra 2 hours just because we're donning, doffing, washing up, cleaning after every patient that we see, washing our hands stringently, and then we are wearing scrubs when we are coming home. I make sure that I don't enter the house from where everybody is. I enter separately. The first thing I do is I empty all my pockets, leave everything in the garage. I make sure that I do not meet anybody till I've gone in and taken a shower. I take off my scrubs, take off my lab coat, make sure I put it on the washer right away. I'm cleaning my goggles. If I've stopped taking any extra things with me, like folders, keys. I'm constantly sanitizing my hands to the point that they are becoming so dry. The other things that we are doing at home too, I have separated an area for myself. I have one bathroom, one room that I am just using, even at home, although we are meeting family, but I'm trying to maintain a social distance with my parents. I see them from far. If I have something close, it's FaceTime. Even my 5-year-old now gets his bedtime story through FaceTime. So these are the things that we are doing because there is a lot at stake here for us.
These are certainly very tough times. Anyone else care to give their, what they do?
I kind of do the same thing as Dr. Shah is doing. I'm wearing scrubs to work every day, and when I come home, I come through a separate entrance through garage. I get rid of my scrubs daily and put them in washer, and I try to stay away from kids as much as possible. So yeah, I mean, we just have to be careful.
Yeah, and more importantly, I think, or to add to the others, is we're also following, all of us, being essential workers and frontline people, following the common advice of the governor and the county to stay at home. I have teenagers and older children, and I don't let them go out to do any grocery shopping or unnecessary trips. We have someone to do that. We're trying to order stuff more often. Exercising at home. One thing I wanted to mention, and I think the governor said it last night, the coronavirus doesn't take the weekends off. We can't have thousands of people going to the beach on the weekend. We need to follow this stay-at-home order in order to really maximize the flattening the curve.
I'd like to ask you, just to follow up on that despite the high number of cases and fatalities, several states are going ahead with their plan to restart their economies, even though the United States does not have the kind of testing infrastructure that experts say is necessary to open up. So what, in your opinion, is a good time to open up the United States? Or when will this be over? When will you feel safe to take your family to a restaurant or a movie without fear?
I feel at this time we should really hold our precautions. We should follow the CDC guidelines. We should really practice social distancing. We should not really go out to the restaurants or think about restaurants. I know the beaches are open. The restrictions are lighter in some of the states, but we should not really take it lightly. We should really, really still practice social distancing as much as possible. It's for our good. We can't feel safe. We don't know. This is a new virus for us. This is a new pandemic. We don't know when it is going to be over for sure. So at this time, even though everything is being lifted off or just a little bit easier, the beaches are open somewhere and salons are open in some of the states, but I feel that we have to still practice social distancing away from larger crowds, away from everything. I agree with all the other doctors, Dr. Yathiya Shah, Dr. Zaidi. It's just added 2 hours of my time taking care of the stuff. I have to put everything in the trash when I come home. There's a separate trash can in my garage. There's, separate laundry basket in my garage. I leave few things in my car much more often. Even if I bring any food or any mail in my home, I clean it up multiple times. Multiple times. So it's added. I know people are frustrated, including ourselves, including the smaller kids in our home and everywhere else, and they're frustrated. But they get used to it. For a few more months, if we try to, even though it's flatten the curve, but if we still practice social distancing, still be very patient, very careful, then I think we can, we have a better chance of survival. We would not see a resurgence in the disease.
When would be this over? Are we going to have to continue to quarantine forever till the vaccine is discovered? Or what do you see in the future? How the things are going to play out?
Well, I think that's a good question because, obviously life as we know it is not going to be a flip of a switch and we're going to be able to have big parties and have all these people over. I think you're going to have to get used to a new normal, not handshaking. Maybe, eventually when restaurants open, very minimal people inside. Maybe your servers have gloves and masks, and so are you asked to come in. Maybe there'll be temperature checks. I mean, I think until eventually a vaccination and a curative process is taken place, there needs to be some steps in order to protect the public.
This ever going to be over? Is this, after COVID-19, are we going to see COVID 2021?
Anything can happen.
I would say that we've seen pandemics before. We've seen SARS, we've seen MERS. So infectious diseases and pandemics have been a big part of our past and are probably going to continue to be. What we should learn from this pandemic is it has exposed our weaknesses and we need to try to make ourselves stronger in those areas. Most of the time, the pandemics eventually pass. They become more contained, or they, like the flu, are seasonal and pass off with time, or we develop better tests or have vaccines. So I have full hope. I think we need to be patient. We need to give it at least 12 months to see where we are headed, but I'm hopeful for our future.
Are you getting enough support from the community, and what can the community do to help you? I'd like to begin with Dr. Zaidi, if you would please.
I think we've seen a lot of outpouring of support from the community. I've seen community members, bring in things such as, extra masks. Some of the businesses have donated gloves, masks. Some of the community members have been providing lunches for the nurses in our hospital who've been working, long shifts and long daily shifts for 7-8 days in a row, which can take a toll on our nurses and their families. There have been people who have organized food drives for people who are unable to go out and make a living and earn for their families because of the social isolation and quarantine. So yeah, I've seen plenty of community support.
Dr. Manjeet, you are the president of one of the largest association of Pakistani community in the United States, APNA, which is the American Physicians of Pakistani descent, and you are the president of the local chapter of APNA. So in this situation, can you tell us what activities or what role APNA is playing?
Absolutely. UPNA has been actually very active from day one with an aggressive fundraising and community support program, both for our members, our families, our communities here in the United States, and also Pakistan. If you go to their website, we've launched a significant thing. In fact, just yesterday, they had a pretty impressive telethon on one of the local channels, raising funds again. They've down, so far, from what I understand, it's over $750,000 have been raised in PPE, not only for here in the States, but also for people and the healthcare providers in Pakistan. They've also done a lot of community events, just like you're doing tonight, hosting and educating. And so I believe that they have done a very good job on the forefront. Not to mention partnering with all the local organizations, even in Southern California, whether it be food drives, PPE, in just general, the role of response of the community, not only the Pakistani American community, the Muslim American community, has been really resounding and really quite humbling, because the people have really opened up their hearts and their wallets for a good cause and to help neighbors and friends.
My hat off to you. You're doing an incredible job. You're serving the humanity, very selfless service. You're putting your life and your families online, and we pray that God protect you and you and your family, and keep you safe. I'd like to ask you, just as a personal and question, and knowing what you know about the corona infections, and knowing that so many doctors and nurses and healthcare workers have been infected and have lost their lives throughout the world. Had you known that when you entered the medical school, do you think you would have chosen to become a chartered accountant or an engineer?
I would say that, as I mentioned, infections and pandemics are not something new. I think we were very well aware of what we were getting into, and we still chose this line. And honestly, I mean, other people look at us as heroes. I don't know if others would agree, but right now, looking at all the suffering, the pain around us, we almost feel defeated. As doctors, we are somewhat perfectionists. We like knowing exactly what we are doing and how best to do what we do. But this virus has caught us at a weak time when we are not exactly ready, but we are getting there. We are trying to come up with new things. We're trying to modify our strategies as we see results. And not for a second do I regret being a physician. In fact, I think tough times bring out the best in people and communities. And we really now have appreciate the things that we used to take granted for. And I think we are all going to come out stronger from this.
Yes, I believe we are doing a great job, given the circumstances, given what we have. We don't know much about the virus. We were not prepared much, but we are willing to sacrifice our lives or be together in this pandemic as a healthcare worker. So I still would be a healthcare worker no matter what, and try to educate, or as an educator as well. So my job is not to protect myself and the doctors around me and the residents. I have to be a role model for them, and then teach them the best qualities of life. And they have chosen this profession. They are new in this profession, not to instill fear in them. So we have to fight it together. Teach them to rise above the norm. We have to teach our communities. We have to stay strong during this time. So we are a role model, not only just a healthcare provider, but a role model for other people so that they stay strong too. Also, I want to say that as a counselor of the Ghana, what I was also doing was with e-doctors, we are spreading our recommendations, the CDC recommendations, the other guidelines which are available in university hospitals in US. We are educating Pakistani people about that and taking lectures and like spreading the word so that globally we are proficient in spreading good word and trying to make sure that the guidelines are effective everywhere else. We are also like I have seen so much community helping us out, not only American population all over the world, not only European population, globally. I think the world has come together. There are lots of organizations, Muslim organizations. They are doing a great job, and are here in Orange County, in Riverside County, LA County, everywhere else. They are really supporting for people, whichever race, whichever ethnicity. We just like trying to fight the poor, hunger at this time, and so many people have lost jobs, and people are scared. People are really scared. Are messengers of hope right now.
Anyone else, Dr. Majid, would you care to say something about this?
I mean, I think all of the speakers have eloquently put it. The bottom line is, we're in this together as a community, as neighbors, as friends, local communities, our cities, towns, counties. And I think if each of us can do our part, I think we're going to be stronger. And I applaud Dr. Shah's sentiments that, she has hope. And I think we're going to come out of this stronger. And inshallah, God willing, I think by taking care of each other, taking care of our families, our friends, and our neighbors, one step at a time, we're going to get through this.
Well, thank you very much for a very informative talk, everyone. And I would like to thank you for joining us today. This is month of Ramadan and it's late night. So I really thank you for taking the time out to join and to educate the community. But more importantly, I would really from the bottom of my heart like to thank you all for doing what you're doing. And lots of prayers and love to you guys. You guys are doing a noble job. I mean, this is incredible. We wish you all the best. We pray that may God protect you and your families and keep you safe. Thank you so much. Take care of yourself.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thank you for watching. Please keep sending us your comments, your feedback at salam@pakistanlink.com. Please be safe and please stay in touch. Read the link. Urdu Link, Pakistan Link. Khuda Hafiz.